Self-discovery, the Stoic way of handling those who brag. You've probably been there, standing in a room where everyone seems eager to speak but no one seems eager to listen. Their words spill over with self-praise, inflated stories of achievements, exaggerated success, or endless updates about things that don't really concern you. Yet you're trapped in the noise. And in that moment, you wonder quietly, why does this feel so draining? It's because you're not meant to find peace in other people's noise. You're meant to find peace within your own silence. That's where Stoicism begins. The world of noise and the quiet within. In a world obsessed with broadcasting the self, silence has become a rare form of power. Social media rewards the loudest voices, conversations become competitions, and even casual gatherings can turn into arenas of subtle boasting. Someone talks about their business venture. Another shares their new car, their income, their relationship milestones. And before long, you're surrounded by a chorus of me, mine, and look at what I've done. It's not that success is wrong, or that sharing joy is unworthy. But what happens when every conversation becomes a contest? When people speak not to connect, but to impress? Here's the Stoic truth. You can't control what others boast about, but you can control your response to it. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, once wrote in his Meditations, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." It's simple, yet profound. He didn't say to correct others, to outshine them, or to withdraw in contempt. He said, be tolerant. Because people's actions are not yours to command, but your reaction is always within your power. Understanding why people brag. Before we can respond like a Stoic, we must first understand the human impulse behind bragging, not to excuse it, but to see through it. Because the Stoic path begins not with judgment, but with perception. Most people who constantly talk about themselves are not as confident as they appear. Their voices may sound assured, their posture upright, their stories polished with pride. But beneath that surface lies something tender, something unsettled. Boasting is rarely born from confidence. It's born from insecurity disguised as confidence. It's an attempt to prove to the world, and to oneself, that one's life is meaningful, impressive, and valuable. In truth, it's a form of self-preservation. In a world where worth is too often measured by followers, wealth, or status, many feel invisible unless they broadcast their achievements. They speak not out of arrogance, but out of fear. Fear of being overlooked, fear of insignificance, fear that silence might confirm their doubts about themselves. The Stoics understood this deeply. They saw that all human behavior stems from what we believe will lead us to peace and happiness. The problem is not that people seek peace, it's that they seek it in the wrong places. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, said, "What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about things." This line cuts straight to the heart of the matter. The person who brags has made a judgment that being admired will bring them peace, that being envied will bring them security, that the applause of others will drown out their inner uncertainty. But admiration is a fragile currency. It fades quickly, like smoke in the wind. The more you chase it, the more you need it. And envy isolates. It builds invisible walls between people. The braggart becomes trapped in a loop. The more they boast, the more distant others feel. The more distant others feel, the more they boast. It's a cycle of self-sabotage hidden beneath a mask of self-assurance. So they keep talking, louder, faster, with greater detail, as if the echo of their own voice could fill the silence they fear inside. The silence that whispers, "Maybe I'm not enough." But to a Stoic, this is not someone to despise. This is someone to understand. Because behind every act of boasting is a soul in search of balance. Behind every exaggerated story lies a quiet plea. See me, validate me, tell me I matter. When you begin to see this, something shifts inside you. The irritation that once rose in your chest softens into compassion. You stop meeting pride with pride. You stop letting their words pierce your peace. You realize that bragging is not power. It's a symptom of inner poverty. And pity, not anger, becomes the natural response. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Whenever you are offended at someone's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger." This is a reminder that understanding others begins with humility. The things that irritate us in others often mirror the insecurities we have yet to master in ourselves. We too have craved recognition. We too have exaggerated, hoping to be seen. Recognizing that shared human weakness allows empathy to take the place of frustration. So instead of thinking, they're so full of themselves, you begin to think, they're searching for something they haven't yet found within. And that realization, that clear seeing, frees you. Because when you no longer take their bragging personally, when you no longer feel the need to compete or correct, you reclaim your power. You step out of the invisible tug-of-war of egos and into the calm observation of the Stoic. You stop asking, why do they act like that? And start asking, what does this reveal about human nature? And what can it teach me about patience? And suddenly what once felt like an annoyance becomes a teacher. Every braggart becomes an opportunity to practice understanding. Every boast becomes a chance to exercise restraint. This is how the Stoic transforms irritation into insight. This is how wisdom begins, not in reacting but in seeing clearly. When you see that the person who brags is not arrogant but afraid, not powerful but insecure, you stop resenting them. You start understanding the deeper truth, that peace will never come from being admired. It comes from being aligned with your values, your integrity, and your own quiet sense of worth. And when you truly understand that, when you no longer chase the validation that others so desperately seek, you begin to embody the very calm they've been searching for all along. You become the still point in the noise, and that, the Stoics would say, is the mark of true strength. The Stoic lens, control what you can. Stoicism divides life into two categories: things you can control, things you cannot. You can't control other people's words, their need to impress, or the tone of their voice, but you can control how much power their noise has over your peace. Epictetus would remind his students, if someone does wrong, the harm lies not in their action, but in your reaction, if you let it. That's the heart of this practice. When surrounded by people who brag about their personal business, the Stoic doesn't engage in silent resentment or forced politeness. They simply remain centered. How? They don't compare. Comparison is the thief of tranquility. When someone brags, your ego naturally wants to measure itself against theirs. A Stoic sees that impulse, smiles inwardly, and lets it go. They don't judge. The braggart is neither villain nor threat, merely a person seeking validation. They don't participate in the noise. A Stoic chooses silence not as withdrawal, but as strength. Silence communicates self-assurance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. If someone brags, you don't need to counter with your own achievements. If someone speaks to impress, you don't need to one-up them. Your peace is your quiet victory." The power of silence and inner distance. Imagine this. You're at a table where everyone is talking over each other about business ventures, personal wins, or luxury purchases. You sit quietly listening. Your mind is calm as a still lake. This isn't disengagement, it's presence without attachment. A Stoic practices inner distance, the ability to observe without absorbing. You hear their words, but you don't let those words shape your sense of worth. You observe their pride without allowing pride to rise within you. Seneca, in Letters from a Stoic, offered this reminder. It is the power of the mind to be unconquerable. You're unconquerable when you no longer need to react. You're unconquerable when you can remain kind, even in the presence of vanity. The world loves noise. The wise love stillness. And in that stillness, you begin to notice something profound. Their bragging no longer bothers you, because it no longer touches you. Practicing detachment without arrogance. There's a subtle trap in Stoicism, one that many fall into without realizing. When you start practicing inner calm, it's easy to look down on others who haven't found it yet. You might think, I'm above this conversation. I'm wiser than they are. But that too is a form of ego. The Stoic doesn't use detachment to feel superior. They use it to remain free. Marcus Aurelius cautioned himself against this very thing. Do not be overheard complaining, not even to yourself. In modern terms, don't roll your eyes internally at others' behavior. That's still complaint in disguise. Instead, practice quiet humility. You don't need to announce that you're above the noise. Your stillness will say it for you. The Stoic action. What to do in the moment. So when you're surrounded by people who brag about their personal business, what should you actually do? Here's a practical Stoic sequence to follow. Pause before reacting. Take a single breath. Feel your feet on the ground. This breaks the instinctive urge to respond emotionally or defensively. Shift your focus inward. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this moment about my own patience? This turns irritation into introspection. Listen without comparison. Let their words pass like clouds across the sky. You hear them, but you don't chase them. Respond with calm curiosity if needed. You can ask gentle questions like, "That's interesting. What did you learn from that experience?" This subtly moves the conversation from boasting to reflection. Withdraw gracefully if the noise persists, not out of contempt, but self-respect. You don't have to absorb energy that doesn't align with your peace. Reflect afterward. Ask yourself, did I stay true to my values? Did I let pride or irritation control me? Stoicism is a constant practice of self-correction, not perfection. Over time, you'll notice something powerful. You become untouchable in the best possible way. You no longer depend on the silence of others to find your own. Living by example, quiet confidence as influence. The Stoics didn't just preach, they embodied their philosophy. When you remain humble in a room full of pride, you become the quiet example of strength that others subconsciously recognize. True confidence doesn't need validation. It simply exists, steady, calm, unshaken. And that quiet power begins to affect the room. You might notice people talking a little softer, reflecting a little more, matching your calm energy without realizing it. As Seneca wrote, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve." By practicing Stoicism, you create a ripple effect, not through preaching, but through presence. You remind others, even wordlessly, that peace is possible in a world of performance, the inner freedom of the Stoic mind. There's a beautiful paradox in Stoicism, one that quietly dismantles the illusions of control that most people live under. You gain the most power when you stop trying to control anything beyond yourself. It sounds simple, almost too simple, but that simplicity hides an extraordinary truth. The world spends its energy trying to shape circumstances, to mold other people's opinions, to orchestrate outcomes that will finally allow peace to arrive. But peace that depends on external order is always fragile. It trembles the moment the world refuses to obey our will, and the world, by its very nature, never fully does. The Stoic learns to reverse that equation. Instead of trying to calm the world, they calm the self. Instead of trying to silence others, they silence their own need to react. They understand that true freedom is not found in dominance, achievement, or even understanding. It's found in acceptance. Freedom doesn't come from being admired or from proving a point. It doesn't come from being the loudest in the room or the most successful on the surface. Freedom comes from being unaffected. When others brag, they are searching for a way to escape their insecurity. Their words reach outward, hoping to be reflected back by admiration. But admiration, like a shadow, always disappears when the light changes. When you remain calm, when you no longer need to defend yourself, to be validated, or to impress, you have already found the freedom they are still chasing. You have found mastery, not over others, but over your own emotions. Marcus Aurelius, writing to himself in the quiet of his tent between battles, captured this truth perfectly. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Those words are the compass of Stoicism. They point to the only territory you truly govern, your own mind. Every time you resist the pull to control what lies beyond you, you reclaim what has always been yours, inner sovereignty. Think of it this way. The world outside you is like the sea, unpredictable, restless, often stormy. You can't calm the waves, but you can learn to steer your ship. That's Stoic freedom. It's not the power to stop the storm. It's the wisdom to remain steady within it. And in that steadiness, you begin to see a deeper kind of peace, one that isn't built on outcomes, but on orientation. You no longer measure your calm by the behavior of others or the noise of the room. You measure it by your ability to stay centered despite them. Peace, then, isn't found by silencing the noise around you. It's found by mastering the noise within you. The chatter of insecurity, the whispers of ego, the reflex to prove yourself, the endless comparisons. When you quiet that inner turbulence, you realize something profound. The noise outside was never the real problem. It only echoed what was already unsettled inside. A Stoic's freedom is the freedom of still water, reflective, deep, unmoved by the wind. In that stillness, life continues to happen. People will boast, storms will rise, the world will test your calm, but none of it will own your peace. Because your peace is no longer up for negotiation. It belongs to you, it always has. And that realization, gentle, quiet, unwavering, is the essence of Stoic mastery. The still mind in a loud world. So what do you do when you're surrounded by people who brag about their personal business? You do nothing. And in that nothing, you do everything. You listen without absorbing. You understand without judging. You remain calm without withdrawing. You practice the art of being untouched, not because you don't care, but because you care about something higher, your inner peace. In a culture that measures worth by noise, the Stoic measures strength by silence. In a world obsessed with being seen, the Stoic is content to simply be. And that's the ultimate life path of self-discovery, realizing that peace isn't found in proving yourself to others, but in mastering yourself before others. As Epictetus would remind us, no man is free who is not master of himself. So the next time you're surrounded by people who brag, smile gently, stay present, and remember, you're not here to compete in their story. You're here to write your own, quietly, powerfully, and with unwavering peace. Final reflection, the Stoic challenge. Here's your challenge. Next time someone brags about their success, resist the urge to compare. Instead, offer silent gratitude for your own journey. Every moment you practice restraint, you strengthen the muscle of wisdom. Be the stillness that others don't yet know they need. Because in that stillness, you discover something the world rarely talks about. You don't need to be heard to have impact. You don't need to be admired to have value. You don't need to speak to be understood. Your presence, calm, kind, unshaken, is enough. That is Stoicism. That is self-discovery. That is the life path. If you found value in this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Stoic content, and drop a comment with what hit hardest for you. Stay grounded. Until next time.